Welcome to the Nightmare Zoo. Enjoy the story, and remember to hit that subscribe button for us too.
The Nightmare Zoo Files. The Meat Hook Saint of 1888. The jingle I heard on the roof wasn't bells. It was the rhythmic clinking of rusted meat hooks dragging across the shingles, and the red liquid dripping down the chimney wasn't soot. It was the winter solstice, the night the pale guest emerges from the permafrost to claim the tithe of flesh that modern traditions have tried to forget. I was hiding under the floorboards of our cabin, watching through the gaps in the wood as my father stood by the hearth with a heavy iron axe, his knuckles white with terror. The fire in the grate suddenly died, replaced by a cold, putrid wind that smelled of a slaughterhouse in mid-July. A figure began to descend the flue, not by sliding, but by agonizingly contorting its elongated, multi-jointed limbs. It dropped onto the hearth with a wet, heavy thud. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, draped in a coat made of stitched-together animal pelts that were still glistening with fresh ichor. It didn't have a face, just a vertical slit that ran from its forehead to its chest, lined with thousands of vibrating, needle-thin teeth. My father swung the axe, but the creature caught the blade in its bare hand, the metal shattering like glass. The saint didn't roar. It let out a sound like a wet sponge being squeezed, a low-frequency gurgle that made my ears bleed. It reached out with a hand that ended in 5 jagged bone spurs and drove them into my father's chest, lifting him off the floor as if he weighed nothing. I watched in frozen horror as the vertical slit on the creature's body pulled wide, revealing a cavity filled with the half-digested remains of the village livestock and the missing children from the valley. It began the solstice carving, methodically stripping the skin in long, crimson ribbons while my father was still screaming. The creature wasn't eating. It was decorating, hanging the viscera from the rafters like tinsel. It turned its head toward the floorboards, its mouth twitching as it tasted my fear in the air. I held my breath until my lungs felt like they would burst, praying to a god that had clearly abandoned this woods. The entity let out a final, rasping whistle and ascended the chimney, leaving behind a house turned into a charnel floor. I emerged into a room painted in red, the gifts hanging from the ceiling still dripping. If you hear a scratching on your flue tonight, don't look up. The pale guest isn't looking for a snack. He's looking for his next ornament. Welcome to the zoo. The solstice is here, and the butcher is open for business.